Hello friends, welcome to Islington Listens, wisdom from a community of faith that doesn't think the same, vote the same, or love the same, but we are trying our best to follow in the way of Jesus with compassion and hope. We bless the writers and the poets who give us music to remind us who we are. Jesuit teacher and leader and writer Richard Rohr, he wrote about Christmas that it became the celebratory feast of Christians because it basically affirms that it's good to be human. It's good to be on this earth. It's good to have a body. It's good to have emotions. It is good to be alive. And we don't need to be ashamed of any of it. All the things we're feeling make us human and connect us to each other. And Epiphany, well, it invites us to live in the light of this love that God has for the world, embodied in Emmanuel, God with us, trusting that, as early Christians did, in all things, God works for the good of those who love God, co-creating goodness as we follow in the way of the Word who became flesh. So we look for God where the good is. We do not get distracted or confused when false prophets proclaim that things of harm and of danger, of misuse of power and word are of God. We let our bodies and our hearts and our minds guide us in paying attention to what is good. And sometimes we have to go back all the way to the beginning to remember the goodness. For in the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God, and all things came into being through him, and without him, not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. And the light shines in the shadows, and the shadows do not overtake it. And there was a man sent from God whose name was John, and he came as a witness to testify to the light, so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to that light. The true light, which enlightens everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world came into being through him, yet the world did not always know him. He came to what was his own, and his own people did not accept him. But to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave the power to become children of God, born not of blood or of the will of the flesh or the will of humans, but of God. And the Word became flesh and lived among us. The Word calling us to testify, to not be confused that we might be the Word, but to shine a light on what is good. And if you go to your dictionary and look up the word, well, it's a single, distinct, meaningful element of speech or writing, which allows us to co-create sentences, paragraphs, books, poetry, screenplays, letters. But right underneath it is the word versus our word. And there are two definitions for the word. The first is the Bible, which comes from an English word, which is an English word that comes from the Greek word meaning books. Some of us think the Bible is one book, and yet we remember it's a whole library that shows us different ways that humans have drawn closer to God. It gives us different expressions in different contexts for what God might have been like, what God was and is like. But also it says the Word, Jesus, Son of God, in the dictionary. You can also know that if you keep reading down, word says angry talk, as in her father would have had words with her about that. I just finished watching some mystery movies over the Christmas holidays, and Adam and I enjoy a movie that's like a Clue English mystery. The Knives Out last movie that just came out, it's called Wake Up Dead Man. It hits a little close to home because the mystery is in a church with a priest, but you have to sit through a number of angry sermons from a priest who's gone off the rails. And I realize over and over how often, for some of us, the words of Scripture and church can heal, and others need to be healed because they have been hurtful, harmful. Word is also a command, a password, or a signal. Someone gave me the word to start playing. The word for the wise ones was a signal, a star. A signal to set out, to go. A reminder to us that words come in loud and quiet forms. Now, if like me, you're a teenager in the 90s, then you would know that word is a slang that came from the hip hop in the 70s and the 60s that became cool for teenagers around the world to use as an agreement word. So if you said something that they agreed with, then they would say word or word up. You might not remember this. I definitely have. For anybody who, thank God Scott's here, because DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince, if you want to watch some reruns of that kind of. But what is it like to live in a culture where when you say something that someone agrees with, they say word? Amen. They respond. There's a interaction that's different than the quiet pause of wondering, are they being polite? Do they agree with me or not? It's an affirmation, a word that means that you agreed, that you see some truth or some realness in what someone is saying. It would be the opposite of affirming fake news. And then you are all familiar with the idea of giving your word, one's own account of the truth, especially when it differs from another's perspective. And we know how different eyewitness reports can be from the same people experiencing the same thing, testifying to their word, and yet it being different. The word gives us clues, not only to the light, but to truth. The Word became flesh and lived among us. It was embodied. Because you know when someone says, I give you my word, that you give them extra credit and trust when you trust them, or when they have gone ahead of you and shown you that their word matters. Do we live like our words matter? Like the word matters? Do we name our intentions, for they affect our actions? How many times have you been in a meeting or a gathering where people all think that they're coming for different reasons, and they leave a bit frustrated because what they thought was going to happen didn't happen? How easy it would be to name with words, to get on the same page about why we might all be there, or what we're hoping to have happen in our time together. I say words that are powerful every week that seem to resonate. You might not remember your star word, but people seem to remember these words, that we at Islington are not a community who think the same or love the same or vote the same, but we are trying our best to follow in the way of Jesus. Words, well, there could be a sermon for every one of those words in that phrase that you have memorized. I'll give thanks this morning for authors. I hope some of you have had time to read some books over the holiday, because their words of a title can draw you in or make you not pick the book up, right? There can be an invitation in the words or a rejection. When I think of the words of the authors that have held our community alongside Scripture in the years that we have served together. Titles like The Story, or We Make the Road by Walking, Exploring the Alphabet of Faith, or Undivided Love, or Making Room. Words have shaped this community. Words that have been said and sung, words that have been unspoken, or words that got lost in the midst of all of the communication of things that have happened here. The council prays when they gather. They draw close to the word and listen for the Spirit when they make decisions. They have prayed through the word hospitality for a couple of years, which has shaped our community. And for last year and this year, we're holding the word care. As I said, care for self, care for the earth, care for each other, care for the global world. Care. Well, it was a word given to me by my doctor when I went off work last year for 6 months. I had no idea how that word would play out in my own life, let alone in the lives of our community. Our community that continued to care for each other while I was away, that reflected on what it means to hold people and walk with people when they have compassion fatigue, when they are burned out, when they're sad or depressed. Each of us has had a life chapter, somewhere you've been drawn close to community, somewhere you needed space, where you have needed to keep learning to give and receive care. Now, care is a tricky word because you can think that you're being caring, but you could be way off base. We think that we know what people need, but did we listen or pay attention to what they actually need? We're watching leaders in our world try and offer care, do what they think is best. We're wondering what's motivating them and how they might use the word care in ways that could be harmful. The council reaffirmed our call to care for the year ahead. They're just getting in line with what the Stephen ministers have known for over 20 years here in this place, that one-on-one care between people who have built relationships will hold a community stronger than any leader or musician in this place. The founder of that Stephen ministry community, his name is Reverend Kenneth C. Hawk. He founded Stephen Ministry after walking the journey of losing his wife to cancer. They wrote a book in her final treatment time called How to Relate to Those Who Are Suffering. He told a story about being with a group of psychologists where one of the teachers in their college was late for a gathering dinner, and because his wife was terminally ill in the hospital. And so when he arrived for dinner, someone asked, "How's your wife doing?" And he responded, "She's dying." And the other psychologist responded, "Well, we're all dying." And at the time, the psychologist was teaching this university course on the subject of death and dying, and her statement was 100% accurate. We are all dying. It's a profound truth, but no matter how true or profound, it doesn't make it helpful. You can notice when you say something that feels true or right or caring, but people's response is not receptive. Every one of us has missed the mark at times. Friends, acquaintances, highly trained professionals, religious people, lovers to their beloveds, you and me, everyone who means to offer comfort sometimes manages instead to pile more weight on already heavily burdened hearts. So Kenneth did some interviews. He spent time with 4,500 people who had walked through suffering, who'd been publicly vulnerable, who he might have stamped fragile, handle with care on at a certain point in their life. And he asked them, What are the challenges for those giving care and those receiving care? Because before he got into how we do it, he wanted to hear from people what helped, but also what hurt. And they talked about these challenges, which I think apply to us individually, but also to our world right now. Knowing what to say to a hurting person. Understanding or empathizing with or validating someone's struggles. It's a challenge to get to people to open up. Challenge of talking too much or too little. The challenge of having a fix-it mentality or feeling discomfort in the face of someone's pain. Focusing on yourself rather than the hurting person. Just wanting people to get over it or feeling helpless. Avoiding the painful subjects. Avoiding suffering people. Giving advice or being too directive. Being judgmental. Minimizing the significance of the pain or suffering. Wanting to only hear the positive. Or identifying too closely with someone else's pain. Thinking you've walked in their exact shoes. It's a challenge to handle the anger of people who are suffering, or responding with cliches, platitudes, or pet phrases. It's a challenge to know what would be intrusive or welcomed. When we talk about the word, we reflect on how our words can offer care. The title of his book, which we aren't promoting too widely because it can be a bit confusing, is from a proverb that you might not be familiar with. It's Proverbs 25:20 that says, "Like one who takes away a garment on a cold day, or like vinegar poured on soda, is one who sings songs to a heavy heart." The proverb can be taken incorrectly as if you should not sing songs to someone who's suffering or in pain, but that's not true. The invitation is to pay attention to what songs, at what time. As uncaring as it is to rip off someone's coat on a cold day, as messy as it becomes when you pour vinegar on baking soda, you can expect the same results if you sing cheery songs to a person with a heavy heart. You have all had an experience of being somewhere and not feeling quite like what you needed was there, no matter how hard the people tried. We try here. We try to choose music that heals. We try to give words to what we might not be able to articulate, feelings, prayers. We try for music to be a balm for suffering. When Kenneth called his book, "Don't Sing Songs to a Heavy Heart," referring to this proverb, he was inviting us to first relate to those who are suffering by being present, gentle, caring, tender. That can't always be easy for us, particularly for those of us who move fast and think that they know a lot. I don't know if you want to put your hand up if you're one of those people who often has ideas first. There's an invitation in this next 6 weeks for us to slow down into the acts of caring. And I'm going to give you an acronym that might help you, because you might think you're a caring expert or that you're not really good at it, that you don't have much energy for it. But we will all be given by the Spirit moments where we'll be invited to care this year. So, the C in care, you ready? You don't have to make notes. I'll send it out. I'll make a poster. But this really came to me in the middle of the night. Because what do we talk about when it feels like the world's falling apart? What do we do when everyone wants a clean slate, brand new, good year, and we're not really sure how to wrestle with what our lives actually are? We first care for ourselves. We come together as a community. And the C means Christ is already there. So if you missed the phone call, or you didn't get to the hospital, or you didn't even know what happened in the world yesterday, it's okay, because you're not Jesus. And the light, well, that's another sermon. If you need that, come see me. But the light is already there. It can be hard to believe it in the dimness of it all, but it has been, it will be, and will always be there. So see, Christ is already there, okay? So that's helpful. A, it's helpful to be aware of your words. Slow it down. Be aware of your words. Aware of yourself. Aware of the little you that could be triggered by the person's suffering or what you're encountering. Awareness is important to not hurt. And we respond humbly. The wise ones, they knelt. The first thing they did when they arrived to meet Jesus was to kneel. To not think that they had all the answers or even the right gifts, but to kneel humbly in the presence of someone's story and pain and love. And then we're going to spend a lot of time, thanks be to Sheila, for helping us embody empathy. What does it look like to embody and practice that in the weeks ahead? As we set out on our journey of care this year, let's go right back to the wise ones. It might feel to you like you're getting on a camel and you don't even know how to do that. Well, we will give you a footstool along the way, and you'll have all the water that you need. Dr. Elizabeth Lindsay is a National Geographic explorer, and she's quoted, you might have seen the t-shirts that say, if the 3 wise men had been women, they would have asked for directions, arrived on time, helped deliver the baby, brought practical gifts, cleaned the stable, made a casserole, and there would be peace on earth. Wise ones, regardless of gender, are wired to care. We can learn something from these wise ones. They showed up late. In fact, it says they came to the house 2 years later, but they arrived and they showed up. They were aware of the importance of who they were meeting, and so they knelt humbly. They responded with an action. They brought gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And they embodied empathy, for they listened to Mary's story. They showed the ability to understand and share the feelings of another. And we know that they did because they stood up to power and they went home another way. They knew that what they had witnessed was worth protecting and caring for. And so they went home another way. They were careful. They took care. Whatever way you have been on in the year past, we are on a way together. A way that draws us one step closer to Jesus, and a way that needs some support for when we reach into our minds and we aren't exactly sure what to do for such a time as this. We have been given the tools. And the key word, when I say we don't vote the same or love the same or, what is it? You don't even remember. Think the same, that's right. The key word is that we're trying. That's the truest part of what we say each week, because we're going to get it wrong. And we don't even need to hold each other up to some idea of perfect caring. We're going to explore care to help us try our best to follow in the way of Jesus. For we know that Christ is already there. We are aware of how our words have hurt and have healed in the past. We will respond humbly in the year ahead, and we will embody empathy. We need this. The world needs this. We are in this together. Blessed be the tie that binds. Thanks be to God.
Thanks for listening, friends. For other ways to connect, go to islingtonunited.org. May God's wisdom and love keep finding you.